I'm Joel Hastings with DairyBusiness. We're here on Tuesday, April 10 at the USDA meeting held to describe the California Federal Milk Order. I'm with Geoff Vanden Heuvel, who's a producer in Southern California and a consultant and advisor to the Milk Producers Council of California. He's written some excellent pieces not only on the California Federal Order proposal, but also on milk marketing in general. I'm pleased to be with Geoff today. Geoff, tell us your impressions of how the meeting went today.
I think there's obviously significant interest in this. It's a once in a multi-generation opportunity to actually take a look at a different system. The reason why producers are looking at a different system, obviously, is they're not particularly happy with the system that we have. And so this has been a long process, actually years in the making, to actually get to this point. But USDA has put out what a California federal order would look like, what the rules are, how it would operate. And so the purpose of this meeting was to daylight for producers, although what they actually published last week or 2 weeks ago is almost identical to what was published in February of 2017. They didn't really make any changes from the preliminary rule to this final rule. So it's not a mystery what's there, but now it's decision time for producers. And our cooperatives, the major ones, have indicated that they are likely to block vote. So the boards of directors of those cooperatives have the responsibility really on behalf of all of us, because as a practical matter, how they vote is going to really dictate the results of this election. And I saw many of those directors here, and I know a lot of them, and they're not really great meeting attenders. So the fact that they took time out to drive here to Clovis today and sit here and listen to this and to pay attention tells you the level of interest and seriousness with which they are taking this very, very monumental decision that they have in front of them. So, yes, that was very encouraging. You know, this is a big deal, and it's very concentrated. By May 5, all these votes have to be cast, and so you don't have a ton of time. But, you know, it's a yes or no, right? So that's the decision at hand.
Dana Cole, who was here leading the USDA delegation, reminded producers that it is their vote, but they are voting on a process and not just a number or a milk price. Maybe you've got a little perspective on that.
Yeah, that's a very important point to consider. The state order that we're all familiar with was created with you know, certain things that were high priorities to producers in mind. One of the things about that's kind of unique to the California state order is that it really requires mandatory pooling. Just about all, well, for sure, all grade A milk in California is a minimum price is enforced on that milk, and much of that milk has to be pooled. But all of it has to pay a regulated minimum. Now that has implications. The state has set those minimums with recognizing that because they're going to go and enforce those minimums, the state of California has always been quite concerned about the ability of plants to be able to pay those prices, and that has tended to get them, their policy has basically been to set fairly low minimum prices relative to these prices that we see in the federal orders. So the flip side is the federal order system, which publishes also minimum prices, but does not enforce them on any plant that's not a Class 1 plant. And so class cheese plants, butter powder plants, even Class 2 soft product plants like ice cream, don't have to pay those regulated minimum prices. Now the question is what producer is going to be willing to sell their milk at less than those minimum prices, whether the government's going to enforce it or not? And what we've seen in the federal orders is that other than, you know, holiday weekends when there's, you know, maybe surplus milk, or the springtime when there's some level of distress milk, by and large, producers insist and are not willing to sell you milk in the federal orders unless you pay at least the regulated minimums, and usually with premiums on top. And so that's been the history of the federal order program, and that is what's being offered to California. California producers are being offered the opportunity to get into that system, but you have to recognize the government is not going to come in there and enforce those minimum prices on those manufacturing plants. And so, you know, that is a different change from where we are currently in California. And the Dana Cole today went out of her way to make sure, both in her presentation and in response to questions, that everybody understood the government is not going to enforce those minimum prices if that milk is not pooled. And there will be a measurable amount of the milk in California that doesn't pool. That doesn't mean it's going to be sold at a discount. It just means it's not going to be part of the pool, and the price that they're going to pay is going to come directly to the dairy farmers or to the cooperatives that will be selling them that milk.
Geoff Vanden Heuvel, thank you very much for this rather historic day here in Clovis, California. On behalf of Geoff, this is Joel Hastings for DairyBusiness.com.